In August of 2021, I was on a solo work trip in Savannah, Georgia. I'd booked a last-minute room at a historic hotel downtown, not one of the big chains, but a place with charm and character. It was one of those old buildings restored from the 1800s with creaky wooden floors, exposed brick walls and antique furniture in every room. The front desk clerk seemed polite, though oddly distracted when she handed me my key. Room 406, top floor, farthest from the elevator. I didn't think much of it at the time. The hallways smelled faintly of lavender and old paper. Room 406 was at the very end of the corridor, next to a locked supply room. The door creaked as I opened it, revealing a surprisingly spacious room with high ceilings and a tall window that overlooked the street below. The only odd detail was the mirror hanging above the dresser. It wasn't centered. It leaned slightly to the left, like someone had tried to adjust it but didn't finish. I tried to nudge it back into place, but it felt strangely fixed, like something behind it was holding it tight. That night, I fell asleep with the TV on low. Around 2 a.m., I woke up without knowing why. The TV had gone black, no signal. The room was still. I sat up in bed and immediately noticed the air had changed. Not cold exactly, but heavy, like walking into a sealed basement. And then I saw it. The mirror, it was fogged over, like someone had breathed on it, but the room temperature was mild and I hadn't used the bathroom recently. I got up and walked over to it, expecting to wipe it clean, but as I approached I saw something faint in the glass. A figure. It was standing behind me, still, pale, wearing what looked like a nightgown. I spun around, but the room was empty. I checked the closet. Nothing. The hallway, empty. I laughed it off, assuming I'd scared myself. Maybe a trick of the light. I turned the TV back on and forced myself to sleep. The next morning I left early for meetings and didn't return until late. Housekeeping had been in, bed made, towels changed, but the mirror had been covered with a white sheet. Just the mirror. Nothing else in the room touched. There was no note, no explanation. I called the front desk and asked about it. The clerk on duty paused and said, "Housekeeping sometimes covers mirrors if there's been a complaint." I asked what kind of complaint, and she just said, "Visual disturbances." I laughed it off again. A little unsettled, but chalked it up to superstition or southern folklore. That night I left the sheet on, but I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing something faint. Not loud, just soft rustling, like a dress brushing the floor, or bare feet moving across old wood. Every time I sat up, the room was still, but the rustling would return as soon as I lay down again. At around 3:10 a.m. the TV flickered. Then the bathroom light clicked on by itself. I got up thinking it was a power issue, but as I stepped into the bathroom, the mirror above the sink had fogged, and this time letters were forming in the condensation, not written with a finger, more like rising from underneath the glass. 3 words, "Do not look." I stared, not sure whether to scream or laugh. My phone was in the bedroom. I went to grab it to take a picture, but by the time I came back, the mirror was clear. I didn't sleep after that. At dawn, I went down to the lobby and asked if I could change rooms. The morning clerk was different from the one who checked me in. Younger, more direct. When I said I was in 406, his face changed. He didn't ask why, he just handed me a new key and said, "3rd floor, room 312. Before I left the desk, I asked him straight up, what was wrong with 406? He looked around to make sure no one else was nearby, then leaned in and said, "People report seeing a woman. In the mirror, always the mirror. That room used to be part of the old nurses' quarters. Supposedly she died in there. Some say she never stopped checking her reflection. I moved rooms and finished the trip, though I barely slept the rest of the time. The hotel never reached out. I didn't report anything officially, but when I got home I developed the photos from my trip, just casual shots from around the hotel. In one of them, taken near the elevator on the 4th floor, I accidentally caught a corner of the hallway behind me, a blurry reflection in the glass window at the end. A pale face. Hollow eyes. Leaning just slightly to the left. In February of 2023, I was driving cross-country from California to Florida to help my sister move. Somewhere in New Mexico, fatigue caught up with me and I decided to stop for the night in a small desert town called Lordsburg. There weren't many options, just a handful of low-cost motels that all looked like they hadn't seen updates since the 70s. I picked one that had decent reviews online and a lit vacancy sign. The desk clerk was an older man who barely said a word beyond handing me a keycard and pointing down the hallway. Room 209. The room was on the second floor, facing the back parking lot. It was small but clean, just a double bed, a nightstand, and an old rotary-style phone that had been converted to work with a landline. I dropped my bags and took a quick shower, grateful to finally rest. The place was quiet, no traffic sounds, no noisy guests. Just the hum of the heater and the occasional creak of settling pipes. I ordered food, watched something forgettable on TV, and climbed into bed around 11 p.m. I was half asleep when the phone rang. It startled me, not because it was loud, but because it was so unexpected. Who calls a motel landline anymore? I hesitated before picking it up. There was no sound at first, then a faint click, like someone had just placed the receiver down on their end. I hung up, brushed it off as a wrong number, and tried to go back to sleep. The phone rang again. This time I picked up faster. Still silence, except now I could hear something faint in the background. Breathing. Long, drawn-out inhales and exhales, no voice, just breathing. I said hello, louder this time, but the line stayed quiet before ending with another click. I unplugged the phone and tossed the cord behind the nightstand. Creepy, but whatever. I'd had worse nights. But around 2:30 a.m., I woke up again, not to the phone this time, but to a rhythmic tapping on the wall behind the headboard. Slow, deliberate knocks, 3 in a row, then silence, then again 3 taps. The walls weren't thin enough to hear neighbors clearly, so either someone was deliberately messing with me or something was happening in the next room. I checked the time, groaned, and got up to listen at the wall. It sounded hollow, like there was space behind it. But I remembered walking by earlier. Room 210 should have been on the other side, so I walked out into the hall and looked. The next door wasn't 210, it was 211. There was no room 210. I went back inside, heart rate climbing, and checked the phone just out of habit, still unplugged. But the light on the base was blinking red, like there was a voicemail. I didn't even think that was possible on a landline like this. I plugged it back in and listened. The message was only 4 seconds long. It was the sound of someone whispering my name. I froze. My name, not a random greeting, not hello. My actual name, spoken in a slow, breathy rasp. No one at the motel knew my name. I'd booked it under my initials through a third-party app. I called the front desk immediately, but there was no answer. I tried 3 more times. On the 4th attempt, the phone just made a long, droning tone, like the line had been cut. Then the heater shut off on its own. I tried flipping the switches. Nothing. Total silence now, the kind that presses on your chest. I went to the window to look outside, but the lot was empty. My car sat alone under the flickering orange light, and the only other movement was something in the reflection. Not outside the window, in the glass itself. There was a figure behind me. I spun around, no one there, but the bathroom light was on now, and the door was slowly closing by itself. I approached it with shaking hands and nudged it open. The light flickered once, then went out. But for a split second before it did, I saw the mirror, and standing directly behind me in the reflection was a pale, thin figure with no eyes, just sunken, hollow sockets, and a mouth that looked like it was mid-scream, though no sound came out. I turned, ready to run, but the room was empty again. I grabbed my bag, shoved everything I could into it, and ran straight out without checking out. I didn't care. I drove until sunrise, heart pounding the entire time, and didn't stop until I was nearly in El Paso. When I called the motel the next day to ask about the room, a different clerk answered. I gave him my name and asked if there had been any issues with room 209. He paused and said, "That room's been out of service for years. Fire damage, it's sealed off." I asked him to repeat that. He did, and then added something that made my blood run cold. "You sure you were in 209? That key shouldn't even work." In October of 2017, I was attending a tech conference in Seattle and had booked 3 nights at a mid-range hotel about a block from the convention center. It was a modern place, recently renovated, with clean rooms and sleek decor, and I didn't think twice when they assigned me room 428. I checked in late in the evening after a long flight and went straight to bed. The first night was uneventful, just jet lag and the soft hum of traffic outside the window. The second day I spent entirely at the conference, didn't return until after dark, and found my room exactly how I'd left it, except for one odd detail. The "Do Not Disturb" tag was hanging on the outside handle. I was sure I hadn't put it there. I never use those things, but I figured maybe housekeeping did it by mistake, or maybe someone else knocked it loose and it ended up on my door. Still, I felt a little uneasy. I took it off, tossed it inside, and forgot about it. That night, I woke up at exactly 3:33 a.m. I know because I checked the clock the second my eyes opened. No sound woke me, no movement, just this cold clarity like my brain had been forced awake. I lay there for a moment, trying to settle back down, but something didn't feel right. The room was too quiet. No hallway noise, no elevator hum, nothing, just stillness. Then, from inside the room, I heard a soft sliding sound. Not footsteps, not knocking. More like fabric brushing slowly across the carpet. I sat up slowly. My eyes were adjusting to the dark, and across the room by the desk I saw it, the Do Not Disturb tag. It was lying on the floor in front of the closet. I was sure I'd left it on the dresser. I hadn't even gone near the closet. I got out of bed cautiously, picked it up and checked the door to make sure it was locked. Deadbolt was on, chain was secured, everything looked normal. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been moved. The next morning, I asked the woman at the front desk if housekeeping had stopped by my room while I was gone the day before. She typed for a moment and told me that room 428 was marked as Do Not Disturb all day. No one had entered. I told her about the tag and asked if anyone else had access. She looked confused and said she'd have someone check the system logs, but I never got a follow-up. That night, I returned early, determined to catch any weirdness in real time. I even placed the door tag inside the drawer by the bed and took a photo of it with a timestamp on my phone. At around 10 p.m., I dozed off with the TV on low volume. And again, like clockwork, I woke at 3:33 a.m. This time I didn't move right away. I just lay there listening. At first there was nothing. Then I heard the softest creak from the closet door. It was subtle, like the weight of the wood shifting on old hinges. I sat up slowly, heart thudding, and turned toward the sound. The closet was closed, but something was off. The darkness around its edges looked thicker, like the gap between the doors wasn't completely closed. And there was a faint shimmer of movement behind it. I didn't get up. I reached for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and aimed it at the closet. Just as the beam hit the handles, one of the doors shifted open an inch. I froze. Not a sound in the room, not even my own breathing. Then the other door creaked open to match, a full 2 inches wide now, enough to see a sliver of black behind them. Not coats, not hangers, just blackness. I slowly got up, approached the closet with my light fixed on it, and kicked the door open with my foot. Nothing, just the usual row of empty hangers and the spare pillow on the shelf. I exhaled shakily and laughed at myself. Maybe the building shifted, maybe the AC draft nudged it open. But when I turned around, I saw something that made my knees go weak. The Do Not Disturb tag was hanging on the door handle again. I hadn't touched it. I checked the drawer. It was empty. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in the lobby until sunrise, too shaken to explain myself to the overnight staff. The last morning I packed up early and went to the front desk to check out. A different clerk was working. I casually mentioned that something strange had happened in my room, and her expression changed. "You were in 428? she asked. I nodded. She hesitated, then said quietly, "That room's fine, but the one next to it, 430. Someone hung themselves in there last year. Housekeeping says they keep hearing the bathroom door opening. The weird part is no one's ever booked in 430. We keep it locked." I didn't respond. I just left. Later, when I checked my phone, I found the photo I'd taken of the tag inside the drawer, but the timestamp didn't match. It said 3:33 a.m., and the tag in the photo was hanging on the closet door. If you ever stay in a hotel and something feels off, trust your gut. Some rooms never forget who stayed last. If these stories gave you chills, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what's hiding in the next hallway.